Now that we have spoken about the various characteristics that the living organisms show, we should know about the nomenclature and identification also. Nomenclature का मतलब क्या है? It is the naming of an organism. So the process of naming living organism such that a particular organism is known by its name. Like we all exist and we all are known by our specific names. बट व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट सम ऑर्गेनिज्म, किसी भी पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म की अगर बात कर रहे हैं तो वी शुड नो दिस नेम अबाउट इट, राइट? नाउ आइडेंटिफिकेशन, सबसे पहले तो वी शुड नो कि किसकी बात कर रहे हैं. इफ आई टॉक अबाउट एलिफास मैक्सिमस इंडिकस, then you would say ki, okay, we don't know what are you talking about. But if I say elephant, then yes, many of you yes agree ki, okay, now we know what are you talking about. And also जैसे उसका हिंदी में नाम गजराज या हाथी भी कहा जाता है. I'm sure India has many regional languages also. So I'm sure in any regional language में उसको कुछ specific नाम दिए जाते हैं, right? So a particular area, people of a particular area, they know this particular animal by their regional names also. But when we are talking about the scientists, so they speak a different language so that universally it is accepted, right? So if a scientist is sitting here and talking about the Indian elephants, then the other one sitting in Africa should know ki, okay, yes, we are talking about the elephant, and this is the particular species which is there in India. And African elephant has these characteristics which are different from them, right? So that is why before nomenclature, before giving a name to an organism, the identification is done. Okay, let's take an example of the elephant only. If someone says that there is an animal who lives in a forest and they live in a herd, then is it a specific identification of that animal? It could be any. It could be the deers also. It could be the elephants also, or it could be the wild buffaloes as well, right? So there are so many animals. We are not specifying here. But when someone mentions that it has a trunk and the tusks also, then we know, okay, where are we going? Which direction are we talking about? So that means identification is done here, right? So when the identification is done, and then after nomenclature is done, right? Naming of the organism is done once it is identified. Now, binomial nomenclature. Binomial, bi means two. So there is nomenclature mein there are two parts, two different words that are used. So the formal naming system of living organism that all scientists use across the world, it is used by all the scientists. It was the name system given by Carolus Linnaeus, and it composed of generic name, which is used first, and then the specific epithet, which is used at the second, which is basically the species of the organism we are talking about, right? Here we have taken the example of Homo sapiens. So Homo is taken first, and then the sapiens is written later, right? Now, universal rules of nomenclature. कैसे लिखा जाता है? It is generally in the Latin words, and it is written in italics. कि अगर तो आप इसको टाइप कर रहे हैं, then font should be italics. अगर if it is handwritten, then it has to be underlined, right? So the first one represents the genus, where the second one denotes the specific epithet. So the genus, जब भी हमने genus mention करना है, the word which is the genus, the first one, it starts with the first letter capital or the uppercase, right? First capital लिखेंगे, उसके बाद all smalls, and the second word in it, all the letters are small, right? So these are the basic rules which are followed everywhere in the world about the nomenclature. Now let's talk about the classification. क्या जरूरत है classification करने की? क्या requirement है, right? So देखो, इतने सारे organisms present हैं on earth. They are microscopic, they are bigger in size, some are huge, some are plants and aquatic. So according to all the different areas where they are found, So there are variety of organisms which are present. So it is very, very difficult to study each one of them. So हमने तभी उनको क्लासिफाई कर दिए into the various groups so that we know कि अच्छा अगर इस group के characteristics are going to be similar. If we are talking about these kind of animals, then they show the same type of features, right? Let's talk about, say, take an example of birds. When the term birds come to our mind, we know they can fly, except for the few exceptions we have, yes. But generally, when we talk about key birds have wings, they are able to fly, they have hollow bones, the body is lighter, right? So these are the basic features. When we talk about fishes, yes, they have gills, they live in the water, they have fins to swim, right? So these are the basic characteristics that classify all the fishes, all the birds in the various categories, right? Now, classifying organism into groups make it easier to know about the different life forms, as we have just spoken about it, right? Classification also help us to understand the evolution. Right now, evolution में कैसे help किया classification में? Like let's talk about apes itself. The humans have evolved from apes, right? So initially, we know apes used to walk on their all fours. Then gradually they stood up. The vertebral column become erect, and they started using their forelimbs for the holding and grasping and doing other activities. And eventually, the vertebral column became straight, and they started walking on their two limbs only instead of fours. Right. So, with the help of this classification, we get to know about the evolution as well. Right. The scientific names, as we have just discussed, the first is the genus and then is the species. So we get to know कि किस genus का और किस species का organism है जिसके बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं, right? All classification keep on changing. Also, the classification keep on changing due to extinction and evolution. जब extinction हो गई, ठीक है, there is an animal which does not exist now, right? So then uske baad it keeps on changing. The classification also keeps on changing, or somebody has came up that there is a new evolution. The new evolution is being discovered. So then that is added to the list, right? So addition and alteration is always done in the classification, right? So I hope this much is clear till now. Let's talk about taxonomy. Taxonomy word derives from a Greek word that is arrangement and law. किस चीज का arrangement? Like we have spoken about कि अब different organisms हैं at various other levels, ठीक है? उनको एक ग्रुप में डालना, एक जगह में कैटेगराइज करना, hierarchical wise, right? जैसे suppose we are talking about the say cat, right? So cat and a lion, we are talking about that. So they all come under the category of animals. First of all, the kingdom is animal. उसके बाद वो chordates हैं, vertebrates हैं, फिर उसके बाद mammals हैं. Then they have the family, which is similar, but the species become different, right? So categorizing the organism in the different hierarchical steps is called the taxonomy. So taxon is defined as the collection of one or more populations of the organism. So these are the hierarchical division, as we have just discussed. So scientific terms of categories for the categories in which organisms are put. The taxonomy tells us about how an organism is divided in the various steps, right? Different hierarchical subdivisions जो हैं is known as taxonomy. So also we will talk about the systematics, which is a branch of science that that deals with the systematic arrangement of an organism and its relation amongst the other. राइट कोई भी एक ऑर्गेनिज्म है वो किस एनवायरनमेंट में रह रहा है कैसे इकोलॉजिकली बैलेंस कर रहा है सो दिस ऑल डिपेंड्स ऑन द सिस्टमैटिक्स राइट Okay, so these are the hierarchical levels that we were talking about. So species is very, very specific here. We have spoken about Homo sapiens in this example. So सबसे पहले the kingdom is animals, animalia, right? फिर chordates आते हैं, फिर mammals, primates, and so on, and then how we reach to the species sapiens, Homo sapiens, right? So जितना आप अपने species के closer होगे, the more similarities will be there. As you go further higher in the hierarchy, these similarities become less, right? So यहाँ पर आपके जनरल सिमिलैरिटीज हैं, जनरल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ द ऑर्गेनिज्म, ठीक है? जैसे ओके, वी कंपेयर ह्यूमन विद द फिशेस, राइट? सो एनिमल्स हैं, वी आर डोंट कम अंडर द प्लांट्स कैटेगरी, राइट? सो किंगडम इज एनिमलिया, राइट? कॉर्डेट्स हैं, सेम है, तो बट द क्लासेस बिकम डिफरेंट. सो यहाँ से कैटेगरी starts becoming different, right? And as you go closer and closer, जब species कोई भी organism जो अपनी species में है, it will show more similarities to its fellows in the species than to the higher in the kingdom, right? So just remember, as you go higher in the hierarchy, the similarities become less, right? So take an example of this family. जैसे कि suppose you and your sibling will show more similarities characteristic wise, the eye color, the hair color, right, the height and all, with your own sibling as compared to your first cousins, right? आपके first cousin और आपके बीच में similarities उतनी नहीं होंगी जितने आपके अपने sibling में होगी. And when you take it further to your second cousins, right? So likewise, the similarity become even more less. We are just talking about the characteristics here. So just don't confuse the in the outer appearance we are talking about here. Just to give you an example, in this case, like you and your siblings will have more similarity as compared to your first and second cousins. I hope this much is clear to you.